What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the #1 automotive live tuning show that you've ever watched on YouTube, aka the only live tuning show that you've ever watched on YouTube. And my arms disappear if I stick them out here because I've got the green screen set up for once. But we've got a special guest tonight. We have got Joe Simpson from Tempest Racing. You guys know him. If you don't know him, you need to go check out his YouTube. It is literally just Joe Simpson. He's been posting up a ton of amazing Holly stuff and just all around cool stuff. You know, he's got a dyno out there, he's doing it right. And let's go ahead and pull him up in here if I can figure out how to operate my crap as usual. Where is he at? And boom, there he is. We got him up. Hey Joe, what's going on, brother?
What's going on?
Thank you for taking the time, and generally we give it a couple minutes for everybody to start piling in here, but let's go ahead and start right off the bat. How did you get into tuning? That's what everybody wants to know.
So I worked at a performance shop, which ironically was Tempest Racing before I took over. And my boss quit coming to work one day, and I got tired of people calling asking about if their cars were done yet. So I just started pushing buttons and kind of figured it out from there. So not a very glamorous story, I guess, but it works.
You know, I find out a lot of the people that have gotten into this business or even gotten into this hobby, if you want to talk about, that's kind of how they got their start. And it's been one of those big things of you got to have kind of the mechanical understanding of how all that stuff works. And then you can tie that back to the electronic understanding to tie it all together. And so we got one. Tim Webb says, "What up, Joe? I have a SEMA car still waiting on that sale tune."
Yeah.
Everybody's waiting on that stuff. Trust me. So, you know, and you did an awesome video here recently where you went over all the platforms. And honestly, it's probably been one of your breakout videos. That thing garnered like 50,000 views in probably, what, a month and a half or something like that?
Yeah, it's very not normal for the videos that I do. That one, I almost didn't make that one, and I felt terrible because I spent like way too much time on it and like basically didn't work on any cars for a day and felt. But then like so much has come from it that it's like, oh wait, maybe I should do that more often.
No, and it was a good video. Rick wants to know where you guys located. You're up in Maryland, right?
Yeah, we're about 20 minutes from Maryland International Raceway.
Perfect. You want to give your address just for anybody that might want to look you up?
We're at 28 Industrial Park Drive in Waldorf, Maryland currently. I have been kind of eyeballing and looking around for somewhere else to go. It'll still be in this general area, but whether that's going to be, 2 months from now or 2 years from now, the real estate market's pretty wild up here right now.
Well, it's crazy down here also. And on top of it, I'm sure you'll do an announcement on your YouTube whenever you do go to a bigger shop. I'm guessing you're probably looking to expand.
Not even more. I want something a little bit more private. I get interrupted like 90% of my workday and I can't get anything done. So I'm going to camouflage a building.
Nobody remember that address then. Don't go by.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody show up at Joe's doorstep.
Yeah,
Buy invite only.
Gotta let people know where you're at to bug you, but then you can't get any work done. So it's a constant battle I've dealt with for years.
Right. And that's kind of the main reason that we've never even looked into doing a commercial space, is the idea of, it'd be nice to have a place where people could come, but at the same time, it's like, you got to balance that out. So once again, let's get back to that video where you went over the different platforms that kind of blew up here recently. And that was an amazing video. You did a great job going over from high end to low end, left to right, talking about what's easy, what's difficult, and stuff like that. And kind of hit the highlight. What's your favorite platform to tune on nowadays?
You mean car or ECU?
ECU.
Really, it's been Holly. Like I kind of went over in that video, like they have multiple different ECUs that the functionality as far as like the interface is the same. So if you know one, you can work through all of them. Obviously, Sniper versus Dominator, there's a lot more complexity if you want to get into that stuff. But Holly works on everything, and it's becoming so popular that years back, like when I was doing just import stuff, I had a Motec ECU in a car, and you would constantly try and push people on it, like, hey, this is an amazing ECU, and then you give people a price tag and they want to punch you in the face. You know, the Holley, $1,000 or whatever it is for a Terminator X with a harness and wideband control and all that.
Hard to beat that.
Yeah, so there's some complications that come with the price tag associated with that, as far as, you know, the cars they end up on and a lot of first timers and things of that nature. But I guess I could say I know the software well enough now where I can kind of immediately tell if it's something with the car or, you know, something I'm doing wrong, that is. So, but yeah, the Holley stuff's been great. And as a result of that video, Holley actually reached out to me. And so now I kind of have like a little bit of a relationship going on with those guys. And of course, like right as all that happens, then the Terminator X's are like on national back order for all the LS stuff. So
of course.
I got all the people wanting them, and I can't, you know, help them out. So.
Well, then we'll pivot from that. What's your favorite vehicle then to tune that you've tuned on?
Oh, man. So way back when, I spent like many, many years basically only doing Hondas. And I know them so well that from a financial standpoint, they make sense to me because you can bring them in and you can just do them really quick and kind of go out of there. But all of the LS stuff, it's a little bit of a love-hate relationship because it's a contest of seeing how cheap and crappy you can do things sometimes.
Right.
But then on the other side of it, they end up in like really oddball and cool things. And you put a turbo kit instead of injectors and, you know, turbo 400, you make 1,000 horsepower any day of the week. And everybody goes fast, so everybody's happy. And, you know, there's some other platforms out there where guys will spend. I just did a 911 Porsche yesterday, I think it was, and like dude bought like $7,000 individual throttle bodies, and the thing doesn't make 200 horsepower. And you know that he was really happy with the numbers, but like at the same time, like horsepower versus, you know, money spent, it's kind of a little bit rough.
Man, and that's the thing. Everybody gets pissed off with the old mentality of LS the world, but at the end of the day, it's just bang for buck. It's hard to beat.
It really is.
And, you know, a lot of that's economy of scale. You know, the parts have gotten so cheap just because there's so many blocks out there and so many guys out there working on it. And I even have a little bit of regret on myself on the Nova going over to a big block because it's cost me a lot more money to make the same horsepower that I could have done on a max effort LS and things like that. But let me ask you this. So I'm running a Terminator X. How are you going to upsell me on a Dominator or an HP?
So I get asked this a lot. I tell people, if you have the money to buy a Dominator and you just want to buy something and never have to worry about it again, then just buy the Dominator. With the Terminator, especially now with the new like input-output expander, it bridges a big gap. So if I was Holley, you know, obviously like the Terminator X was an afterthought compared to the HP and the Dominator, but it should have been like the Terminator X, 4 inputs, 4 outputs, the HP, 8 inputs, 8 outputs, and then the Dominator with, you know, 140,000 inputs and outputs.
Right.
But the HP is, I don't know, for me, it's either buy a Terminator or buy a Dominator. The HP doesn't, but if you use both, like if you simply put a Terminator X in a car and a Dominator in a car, and I don't have any scientific data to like back this up, but I swear you can feel a difference in terms of just how it works. Using the NTK wideband sensor as opposed to the Bosch makes a pretty big difference. You can just build an offset table for whatever you want. And the other thing is you just pick up a Terminator X and a Dominator and hold them in your hand. You can feel why there's a cost difference, even if everything else was the same. I've been very fortunate with the Terminator X stuff and haven't had any like hardware problems. Well, with the exception of one that got wet when they can't get wet. But that's not Holley's fault. They tell you that. But with the, there's a lot of stuff online. You see a lot of guys having problems. Now, whether they are actual problems or installation errors or whatever else, like that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
But as far as the Dominator goes, I haven't had a single issue. They've all been rock solid.
I know back in the day that the Dominators had kind of a weird issue going on sometimes on a tune flash where they might lock up and brick them. And I don't know if that's been fixed in a recent revision on firmwares because I've not followed it that closely, but I'm guessing that beyond the IO and the high-end low impedance injector stuff, they probably got a different processor that's running in there that to give it some of the additional power that it has to do some of the flex maps that you talked about. And that's kind of the big draw. You know, the Terminator's really segmented down in kind of a narrow way on some of the things that you can do as far as modifier tables. That's kind of annoying on that setup. But, you know, a lot of the time when I'm talking to guys that are just looking for an easy way to do a swap, it's like, go to the Terminator X. You can't go wrong with it. And even nowadays when we're talking about, you know, well, should I do this swap and keep the factory ECU? And it's like, don't do that. You're just giving yourself headaches. Like, you're better off either getting the harness or even building your own harness out and having the Terminator X, because at the end of the day, the drivability of it is so much simplified. You're talking about dealing with maybe 10 tables versus possibly 25 or 50 tables on it. And it just makes life so much easier. It is, you know, you can't beat the price. I mean, $1,000, as you said, for something that has a harness with it is just mind blowing. And then you spend a couple $100 more and you can get 4L80 transmission control, things like that. You know, drive-by-wire, electronic throttle. It's pretty crazy.
Absolutely unbelievable what you get for the price. And
Les is asking, I know you can't control the transmission with the HP, but does the Dominator have transmission control on it?
Both drive-by-wire and transmission control.
I figured that it would. It's basically, Les, it's going to have everything that the Terminator X Max has, plus some.
Yep. So a lot of people don't understand that the software is different between the Terminator X and the HP and the Dominator. From an advanced standpoint, the HP and the Dominator do a lot more than the Terminator X, but for 98% of people, the Terminator X truthfully does more than you would almost expect it to, given the price tag.
That's
like,
exactly
they made
right.
The Terminator X and the HP like almost too close together. And so I think the HP, like at this point, they might as well just phase it out.
Yep.
And either do Terminator X or Dominator, but.
Well, and they did themselves a favor by making the harnesses pretty much the same across the different platforms. So your JA1 and your JA2 and all that stuff, those are, as far as I know, they're exactly the same. And so, except whenever you get into
out and put a Dominator in.
Exactly. Yeah. You could literally pull a Terminator out, throw a Dominator in, and it's going to plug right in. And the only where that it gets a little bit interesting is that the Dominator has the ability to use the transmission port as additional IO, whereas on the Terminator X, you can't do that one. So let me make sure I've not missed. We've got some questions rolling in here, and I've been asking all the questions because I've been interested in picking your brain about all this stuff. Any interesting projects you're working on right now? Besides the porch with the ITBs.
I actually took a little bit of video of that one. That one was pretty cool. We had a Stereon or a Conquest today with the 2JZ that made like 9.
I love those cars.
Those things just sound so good. And then a Nitrous car. So today I actually just rented my dyno out to a couple cars. I didn't do any tuning myself, but you know, both cars made right around 1,000 horsepower. Other than that, I've been trying not to really work on anything, so no projects. Oh, I did how did I forget about this? A dirt dragster that made 1,300 horsepower on motor, 16 injectors, methanol, single gear slipper clutch with a 948 gear in it. And because of so my dyno will hold 9,000 foot-pounds of axle torque, which usually works out to be 3,000,
right,
3,500 horsepower, depending on gear ratio. But because of the gear ratio that was in that dragster, we were at over 8,000 foot-pounds of torque. And so they race for 200 feet, and they do it in like 2.2, 2.3 seconds. And it has like 700 shot of nitrous or something on top of all of that. That was one of the cooler ones that's come through here in a while, I think. At least as far from like being a unique and kind of different type thing. So that one was pretty cool.
So as a dyno owner, how much is renting the dyno out versus you using it yourself?
It varies a little bit because I have people that, since we have the mainline Pro Hub, I have, you know, guys with like legitimately pro mods that want to rent it, and they're specifically seeking out this dyno. And then I have guys with, you know, a 140 horsepower Mazda Miata that want to rent it. So I do like half day and full day rentals for, like, let's just call it race car stuff, like the big boy cars. And then for more of the street cars, we'll do like hourly. But, you know, the big boy cars, like you need a minimum of 4 hours. So like kind of the starting point on those is like 4 hour rental blocks.
Right.
And pricing's a little bit all over the place on all of those. It kind of really depends on what it is. They're all like, you know, in the same ballpark, but the typical, like how much time is it going to take and what kind of headaches are going to come along with it sort of offset that price a little bit.
So has it been worthwhile to rent the dyno out as opposed to just using it exclusively for yourself?
I've gotten to see a lot of really cool cars that I probably wouldn't have seen if they were just kind of hunting me out. Because you got to remember, I did import cars up until 2 years ago. So, you know, a guy with a, you know, $250,000 Pro Mod probably isn't going to take his car to the import guy to tune it.
Right.
So I've gotten to see a lot of stuff, and I've gotten a lot of, you know, big name tuners have been here, and I've gotten to watch a lot of other people do their thing. I've seen a lot of similarities with the way I handle things versus guys that I've looked up to forever. I've seen a lot of guys that have big reputations that, you know, I may not contact if I personally needed something done.
Right.
So it's really cool seeing the, you know, both ends of that spectrum, and met a lot of really cool people. And yeah, and then from a business perspective, if I could just rent the dyno out for 8 hours every single day and never, I hate to say it this way, but never kind of like be responsible for what happens to the car, yeah, that would be the perfect world. But I'm pretty fortunate. I rent it out a lot, and at this point, ever since starting a YouTube channel, like usually the wintertime slowed down for me here in Maryland. It's snowing and, you know, all that, but it never slowed down this winter. And now that the weather changed, I'm busier than I can handle. And maybe it's coincidence, but I honestly think it all comes down to this whole like YouTube thing.
Right. Yeah. And that's the cool thing about it. And that's kind of the theoretical next step that we've been looking at is trying to find a small shop space to do a dyno. And so why did you end up doing a hub dyno as opposed to a chassis dyno?
I started with a dyno jet. Then we had a shop with a Mustang dyno in it. And then I absolutely, shit, everyone's going to be all pissy about this one, but I absolutely hated using the Mustang dyno. It was a big Mustang dyno. It was like the 1750. And we were doing import cars making, you know, the naturally aspirated ones that would make 200 horsepower on a dyno jet would make 140 horsepower on that dyno. That's a tough, I get tired of having that conversation. And the dyno was set up for such big power cars that you could throw 5 degrees of timing at it and like it wouldn't even show a difference in the graph. So I was like, I need something else. So then I picked up a Dynapack dyno, which is actually an amazing dyno for cars with manual transmissions and clutches. But then it got to the point where I started tinkering with the domestic stuff and torque converters, and I had 4 cars in a row that I like set the car up on the dyno and basically had to say, sorry, my dyno can't handle this car. And then I was like, I need to find something else. And then our 3,000 horsepower mainline dyno portable was actually the first one in the country. So Tony Palo from T1 Race Development, they're a big GTR shop. I've known him forever. He's helped me out with all kinds of stuff over the years. He had one, loved it. We talked a bunch. Then I talked to Mainline about it directly, and their customer service is without a doubt the best in the industry of any piece of equipment you'll ever buy. And
that's very important whenever it comes to a dyno.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so I bought it. It shipped here, and I can say without, and I've owned multiple brands of dynos. I had 2 Dynavacs, and I can say without a doubt that the Mainline Pro Hub is the best thing I've ever bought in my entire life. And I need a second one, but it's a tough pill to swallow, and this building won't support a second one. So I don't know if I'll get, like, they make a 2,000 horsepower model. If I get that, then I can link the 2,000 and 3,000 horsepower together, run all-wheel drive, even though I don't do all-wheel drive stuff. Or I can save a whole bunch of money and maybe pick up like another, like a used like Dynajet 248 or something. But at this point, I really want a second dyno, which kind of sucks. I don't want to have to buy another one, but it looks like the odds are probably higher in that direction than as opposed to not doing it.
That's a big investment, you know, and And it's hard to justify that at the end of the day, but as the traffic picks up, which is going to for you anyways, you're going to be able to justify that. And I've got 6L63 shoebox wanting to know, you going to be doing any more Holly tuning videos? I said yes, but that was probably
Yeah,
presumptuous on me.
so I actually like doing the Holly videos. Those are my favorite to do, but between like having two camera videos or camera angles, typically, basically where I'm in the laptop and then I'm also in a car with laptop and screen recording, like those videos will take like 15 hours to edit sometimes. And it's just, I have a 3-year-old daughter and I work a lot. So it's hard to find like the time and the balance. I probably have 30 videos worth of, or folders of cars on the dyno that I need to edit, make videos for, and it's just, I can't find the time. But yeah, I will definitely do more Holly videos because, so that's the other thing that's really weird about this YouTube thing is you make a video teaching somebody how to do something, you would think that that means that they're going to do that themselves. But, I mean, I think that seems logical, but what I found is like, they're like, oh shit, this guy knows how to make a car idle really well. They call you up, hey, can you make my car idle like you did in that video? So it's gone far different than I anticipated it would.
Well, that's the bonus of it is not only are you helping people out, but you're also showing people that you know what you're talking about. So I've got a specific question for my buddy Andy down in Australia, and he wants to know your dyno tuning game plan, i.e. normally street tuned, but if you had dyno time, what would you focus on? So the guy's normally street tuning, but if he were to rent 4 hours of dyno, what should he focus on while doing the dyno tuning process?
What kind of dyno? What brand dyno? Or is this a general question?
Just general question.
So don't waste your time with startup and idle and light drivability on the dyno. Do all of that first. I mean, sorry, do all that on the street and then go to the dyno. If your dyno has like a real-time readout, you can do part throttle timing and see where you're at with that. But I would spend, if you had a limited amount of time, I would just really focus on the full throttle stuff. You've both fueling and timing. The timing, so you get, it depends on the power level. 1,000 horsepower car, you're not going to do a good job street tuning it because it's just either going to jail, crashing, or spinning the tires. So if it's low enough power where you can get your fueling dialed in on the street, then just go to the dyno and just play with timing.
And that's the big thing is having a load on there, being able to actually hit different cells is good on the fueling stuff, but the timing's the big thing of being able to actually see what your power is generating off the timing adjustments and where your peak timing is, as opposed to standard street tuning timing where we use a lot of things like NOx sensors and stuff like that. And it's more of a guessing game. Whenever you have a dyno availability, that's where you can really line in. And you'll find a lot of times there's guys out there running 30 to 32 degrees of timing, and they might be making max power at 28. There's no reason to be making or having any more advanced than 28 degrees at that point in time. Even if you're not getting into detonation, doesn't mean that you're making any more power at that point in time. So that's where the dyno really excels. And then a lot of volumetric efficiency stuff that's load-based, where you have a load-based dyno where you can actually adjust the load on the fly so you can populate out your graphs better on speed density or volumetric efficiency. It's a lot better. But that's a great answer. And that's the one thing that, as I said, you're wasting your time if you're trying to do any kind of part throttle or even idle or stuff like that on a dyno. That's just not the place for a dyno. It's there for max power pools.
So a dyno with steady state control, again, like you don't necessarily need to do fueling, but like I can hold my dyno at 2,500 RPM and just go straight up or across depending on the software and hit every single cell. And that will speed up so much time. And the conquest we had on here today was on ethanol and part throttle. They found that the car, 2,000, 2,500 RPM and let's say 20 to 30% throttle, that it actually made, I forget what the number was, like maybe 10 foot-pounds more torque with like 8 degrees less timing in it than what they thought the car was going to want. So every now and then it's interesting to see how far off like the car will be from what's normal.
I would love to see just kind of that process of going through the load control and stuff like that, and showing how you can fill in all those cells and hit all those spots. So please, for me, make a video going over that stuff just so I can see that. And I mean, Maryland's not that far away from me. I might have to drag my crap down to you and and throw it on your dyno for a while.
Hey, MIR is 20 minutes away. If you want to make a week trip or weekend trip or however you want to do it, you're more than welcome to come down and just throw your thing on the dyno and start doing all the stuff that you wish you could do that you've never been able to do. And so my dyno actually has like CAN input as well, and they have a called like torque optimization. So you plug it into a Holley ECU and you hold the dyno at, I don't know, say 3,000 RPM, and you start at, I don't know, 15 degrees of timing, sweep it up 1 degree at a time until you get to, part throttle, go to 40, 50 degrees, doesn't really matter. And the dyno will actually hold and tell you exactly where it made peak power. And it'll tell you what the ignition timing was, since it knows what the ECU is seeing. And you could do that. I mean, it would take you 6 months, but you could go cell by cell and do it that way.
Man,
and it's
that's
kind of
awesome.
Part throttle, you can make a 15-degree swing in ignition timing and see a very minimal change.
Right.
So, but what's the thing that a lot of people need to, or maybe don't understand, is that you can do 10 cars with the same setup. 9 of them all could run on the same map, but then you have the one car that's like out in left field compared to the rest.
Oh yeah.
And I think put it on a dyno just to verify, because everyone, like, I get messages all the time. Hey, can you send me a timing table? Or hey, how much timing can I run at this boost? And everyone literally is a little bit different. And 2 degrees might not seem like a lot, but 2 degrees can be the difference between a engine that runs for 2 years or one that kicks the rods out of it. It just, the higher the power, the smaller that window gets. And, especially you guys trying to do it on pump gas, like, yeah, that's where you really get into trouble.
We're so against CAN tunes here. I think it's the most, the worst idea that's come to our market as tuners is the mentality of that we've done so many of these tunes that we can just throw together a downloadable tune that's going to work in your platform because I've tuned, 1,000 5.7 liter LSs, and that's just not the way that works. You can, as said, you can have, 10 of the exact same platform, same mods, all 10 of those, they're not going to tune the same. They might be close, but they're not going to be the same. And that's another thing that I always push upon people, is why the factory tune always leaves a little bit room for improvement, is the idea that they have to sell 1 million of these vehicles with this motor in it that's going all over the world, running the best gas to the crappiest gas available, things like that. Like, it's not optimized by any means. But, basically what we're saying here is that we're going to have to drag the smoke monster down, put it on your dyno, and you and I are probably going to have to spend a weekend shooting some videos together, tuning that thing in to make max power before Rocky Mountain Race Week. What do you think?
Let's do it. Sign me up.
Well, it is that time. It's time to wrap up. I want to thank Joe so much. We're going to have him back if Joe's willing to come back for the live show. You've been a great guest, and I didn't get to as many questions as I normally do because I had tons of questions myself to ask. So, Joe,
I can't really see the screen too well, but it looks like there's 1 million people. So, I mean, if you want to do this again, just say when. I don't. It's so weird. Like, these whole things feel like they're 4 minutes long. It's almost impossible to believe it's been 30 minutes already.
I know, they fly, man. And go ahead. I'm going to look up the link for your YouTube and post it in the chat here. You tell everybody that anything that you want to say, about your shop, what you're doing, all that, your YouTube, etc.
Yeah, so basically, we got the Mainline Pro Hub. We'll rent it out. A lot of people are scared to ask me if I'll rent it out, which, no, absolutely. I'll rent it out anytime you want. Can do a bunch of tuning. I do some OEM ECU stuff myself. I have some different sources for some different things too, guys that I feel are a little bit more proficient with it than I am. I've been doing a ton of Holley stuff. Been doing turbo cars forever. And new to this whole YouTube thing, so if anyone wants to go check that out, then that would be obviously greatly appreciated. And I appreciate the support from everybody. I never really expected it to go this way. If I would have known it went like this, I would have done it 10 years ago.
You and me both. You and me both.
Yeah.
Listen, everybody, thanks for stopping by as always on Thursday night. Thank you for Joe for coming and joining us and answering some of our questions. Great information going out there. This has been one of the better live shows that I've had because you answered most of my questions. Listen, everybody, we've got about one more week left on the Rocky Mountain Race Week shirts. Go over to GoatRopeGarage.com and pick one of those up. Remember, soon as we close them, you're not going to be able to get one. You'll get your name on the back of it as a special, supporter of Rocky Mountain Race Week. And we're going to have Joe back, and we're probably going to try and find some time to get down to Maryland because it's literally not that far away, and maybe bring the Nova down there and get some numbers on it and have Joe help us dial it in because he is the Holly expert compared to me. And I'm super excited to keep on watching his content, keep on learning more Holly stuff and everything else that he's got out there. So as I said, if you haven't subscribed, I posted it up in the chat. You guys know the drill. Thanks for stopping by the garage. Joe, thanks for stopping by the garage. Remember, ABT, always be tuning.